Hello, everybody. It's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and today we are going to be talking about color theory. Ah! But really, sometimes it's more like, because it's overwhelming. Okay. So when it comes to color theory and color wheels, there is a lot of information out there and it can just be a lot. And so what I have really been doing the last couple of weeks is reading a lot of literature about color theory and really trying to break it down to its most basic form to help you guys feel really successful when it comes to painting. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I just have to put this little caveat before we really get into it. But the reason why colors are really, really tricky is there are a lot of variables. The first variable is that we all have different cones within our eyes, which then inform the color that we see. So we only know what we see. We can't see what other people see. That's a limitation of our own bodies, right? And so that's why sometimes you might argue with someone, that's blue. No, that's green. No, that's blue. No, that's green. It's because we might actually be seeing different colors. Okay.
Okay.
The other thing that makes it really tricky is that we have a really terrible color memory. And what that means is just because we've seen a color, that doesn't mean that we can remember and match that color exactly. So if I were to say, pick the red Coca-Cola logo red, and I put up 50 different kinds of red, we're all going to pick different reds because we all have a different relationship to that red color and we can't remember it exactly. Okay.
Okay.
The other two really big things that come to color is that the light hugely informs the color that we see. So that is why the light of the outside world is very different on an overcast day than a bright blue sunny sky day than at sunset where it's nice and pink. So the light itself is going to inform the color that we see. The last thing that informs the color that we see is the color that is around it. And I know that that sounds totally crazy, but it's not. I actually have this really, really cool book that shows you like a bunch of different, I guess they're optical illusions, but not really, of how color is so relative depending on the values in the color that is around it. And if you're interested in that book and you want me to like show it to you for a tutorial or for one of these videos, let me know because I think it would actually be super interesting. But I have to put that little caveat out there because I think that we think that if I can just understand the rules of color theory and like really exactly nail it, then I'll be able to paint whatever I want and all of this kind of stuff. And it's just like, yeah, there are some formulas, but at the end of the day, it's still so biased and relative. So we have to acknowledge that. And it's unfair for us to pretend that that doesn't exist because it does. Okay. So when I talk about the color wheel was invented by Sir Isaac Newton because he noticed that when you put light through a prism, it broke up the color waves. And if you take those color waves and put them in a circle, color wheel.
Boom.
Okay?
Boom.
Now, I also need to acknowledge that the color wave primaries and when it comes to light and color is different than color mixing and the primaries that we use in mixing paint colors. Okay? So one is additive, one is subtractive. We're not going to go into the definitions, but just know that they're not the same thing. And that's why the rules are different. Okay?
Okay.
So whenever you're looking at a color wheel, there are going to be three primaries. And the primaries are traditionally a red, a yellow, and a blue. And I have to acknowledge, like, this color wheel I made was not with any of these paint colors I have on example, but I just need to acknowledge that. Okay. Now, the primary colors, and the reason why we consider them primary colors is because it's this idea that with these three colors and maybe the addition of like black and white, you can mix every color imaginable, which I don't think is necessarily true. And I don't want you to approach this like, why did we have this rule if it's not accurate? The reality is this came out in the 1700s, like the idea of color mixing to make all the other colors for printers. That was like in the 1700s. And since then, so many more paint colors have been created. And so when you pick up any red and any yellow and any blue, they're going to react differently because scarlet is different than carmine, which is different than Elysian crimson, which I'm sure I'm saying wrong. They're all different reds. And the different colors of the red or the yellow or the blue is going to give you different color mixtures. Okay.
Okay.
And I think this in and of itself, right there, that is the crux of our color mixing issues. Because when we hear primary colors, we think, then I should be able to mix any color. But the reality is, while we're painting, it's not quite right because it really informs our color mixture is hugely informed by the primaries or the colors that we're using to mix. Okay. Now, for the secondary colors, those are the colors where if you mix your primaries together, you're going to get orange, you're going to get green, and you're going to get purple. Okay, so those are secondary colors. The reason why that's important is because we have a secondary and a primary pair called complementary pairs. And so it is green and red, blue and orange, and yellow and purple or violet. And the reason why complementary colors are really wonderful to know is because when you have both of those colors together within a painting or like in your house or whatever, in the clothes you wear or something, it's going to react to each other. Because they're on the opposite sides visually, they kind of like bounce against each other a little bit.
They complement each other, if you will.
They complement each other, and sometimes they fight against each other, but not in a bad way, in an interesting way. Okay.
Okay.
And also, if you mix the colors together, then you're going to get a neutral as well. So if you need to tone down how red something is looking in your painting, if you mix a little bit of green in there, that is going to tone down the vibrancy of the red and naturally neutralize it, as opposed to adding black or adding a different color in there, which will change the actual color of the thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the other term that I want to go over is tertiary colors. And those are the colors that are in between your primary and your secondary. And it's the mixture color in between tertiary. Okay, it's the third. So it's made up of those three kind of sections. The other term that I want you to know that I use regularly in my practice are analogous colors. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Now you might be wondering, why does that matter? Well, whenever you're doing a color gradient or trying to paint an orange or a strawberry or something like that, when you work within the colors that are analogous with each other, it's going to create more of a vibrant item. So for example, if I'm painting an orange and I stay within yellow and a yellow orange and an orange and a red orange, that's going to give me a more vibrant orange than if I were to just use white, orange, and black to paint an orange. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So those are the basic terms. There's more terms that I'm not really going to go into because those are the ones that I use the most. And when I'm teaching and I'm talking, that's what I'm thinking about. Okay?
Okay.
Now, I talked about how the primary color sets are not all equal. And this is a visual representation of what that means. So in basic like painting sets, you're going to find like a basic red, yellow, and blue. In printing colors, you're going to find something that's more like this, which is magenta, cyan, and yellow. And the reason why, like our home printers or printers that print magazines and books and all of that kind of stuff, they use these colors because it's much easier to get vibrant mixes with those colors than these ones. And you can see here, I just did a quick mixture of the traditional red, yellow, and blue, and then the traditional magenta, cyan, and yellow. And you can see, like, look how vibrant, especially when it comes to the greens and the purples, like comparing these two, look at the vibrancy between them. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to approach this saying that one is better than the other, because the reality is, as artists and as creatives, we're going to lean towards some colors more than other. That's our own color bias. So if you like more earthy, natural tones, then you might want to stay within this. If you love bold, bright colors and you're looking for that pop and you're looking for that vibrancy, then this is maybe the color palette that you want to work in. Okay?
All right.
So what I want you guys to remember when it comes to the primary colors and color mixing is essentially you want to identify what your primaries are within the color palette that you have. Okay, so sometimes if you buy a set, you're gonna have primary colors no matter what. If you've just been collecting paints, then you're going to want to understand which are those primaries and then mix up your secondary and tertiary colors just so you have an understanding of how this goes. This color wheel I actually created using the colors that I use on my own palette. Like I always have Q Coral, I always have Q Gold, and I always use Phthalo Blue. Like those are my most used primaries, okay?
Okay.
And so this is a more accurate representation if you were to look at my paintings of the colors you would see than maybe this one, okay?
Okay.
And again, one is not bad. It's more just what do you have? What do you like, okay? What it really boils down to when it comes to a color wheel is if you can understand how complements work together, that's a huge like gold star, because then you're a little bit more able to control the saturation of a color. You're able to mix neutrals. You can see how they work together, and you can adjust your colors based off of that. When it comes to the actual primary colors, really what it boils down to in terms of your mixture is color temperature. And what I mean by that is all colors, just about every color is going to lean warm or cool, okay? The temperature of that color is what informs the vibrancy of the color mixtures that you have. Because if you're mixing a cool yellow, so a yellow that's leaning green, with a blue that leans purple, your green is going to be like earthy toned. But if you're mixing like a cool blue, like a turquoisey blue with a cool yellow, you're going to get a super, super vibrant green. Okay. And I know that a lot of people ask, how can I tell the temperature of the color? That is an excellent question. So in the next video that we release, I am going to talk to you about color temperatures. Okay?
Excellent.
Now, if you want to get a little bit more familiar with painting with analogous colors and how they can really enrich it, and also painting with complementary colors and how they can work off each other, that's what we're painting in our monthly projects together. So this will not be released on YouTube, but this is a project that we paint together in our monthly digital projects that I release every single month. This one we go more into color theory. We use blue for our shadows on our orange and on the table. So if that interests you and you want to practice that, that might be something you want to look into. And then I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.